less cost. That is not so much a threat as it is an opportunity.
If America becomes more productive, more dynamic, generates more wealth, more invention, it helps the rest of the world, just as Japan becoming more productive and dynamic helps the rest of the world. We are all better off because we have access to Japanese technology.
And I think what a lot of people don't understand is how interdependent we are and how important it is to both economies and societies that we both succeed.
No nation can go it alone in the sense that no nation has all the resources required for survival. And in order to get the resources from others, you must trade with them. And if you trade with them, you have to allow them in. And the aggressive companies, the companies that are big and powerful, are everywhere. And this creates a global marketplace.
People have often said that if the Japanese didn't exist, we should have invented them just because they make us better. I think there's truth in that.
The global quality competition has made some multinational firms better, and their success is being studied and discussed by other companies. It would be a mistake to think that a quality program is easy to do. It is not. A quality system is difficult and demanding and time-consuming. Continuous improvement never ends, and quality requires constant attention. There is only one reason to do it: survival. Donald Peterson, the retired chairman of Ford Motor Company, has said that companies that do not adopt a quality culture will not survive, period. That's what we'll look at next when Quality or Else continues. I'm Lloyd Dobbins. Good night.
Stay tuned. Quality or Else will continue after a brief intermission.
Quality experts like to tell this story. If you drop a frog into a shallow pan of scalding water, the frog will immediately jump out. But if you put the frog in a pan of tepid water and slowly raise the flame, the frog will stay there and boil to death. Too many people, companies, and governments, particularly in North America and Europe, are sitting quietly in the competitive water of the world market. The temperature is going up. The crack of the bat may be the most American sound there is. Other countries may play baseball, but Americans dominate the game, as for a long time they dominated everything else. Baseball is still the same game. Everything else has changed, and America's one-time dominance of the world economy no longer exists. America seems somehow to be slipping, sliding if you like. Either way, other countries are moving ahead. The United States is still a wealthy nation with a strong economy, but if the trend since 1973 continues, it will not have a strong economy and it will not be a wealthy nation. What has happened is that other people, principally the Japanese, have learned how to manage and organize workers and technology to produce better products for less money. It is a quality revolution, a new ball game that everyone can play. The Hilrick and Bradsby plant at Louisville, Kentucky makes the world's best-known baseball bat, the Louisville Slugger. The company was founded in 1884 and prospered for almost 100 years. But by its centennial, it was in trouble. Jack Hilrick, grandson of the founder, knew the company could not continue with business as usual.
If we hadn't changed, we probably wouldn't be in business today. Our cost and our quality would have driven us so high that we could not have made a profit. In the early 80s, our workforce was almost alienated from the management. We had 300 or 400 job changes a year, probably 40 or 50 grievances a year. And it was just not a pleasant place to work. Our initial changes came as a result of going to a Deming seminar.
He is referring to Dr. W. Edwards Deming, a noted quality expert.
We went there in '84, and we really learned a new philosophy, that management has to change.
The American worker is not the problem. The problem is at the top, management.
He knocked down a lot of the myths that we had believed in before. He taught us that all of your workers are willing workers, and if management will give them the proper tools, proper machinery, proper equipment to do the job, that they will do it.
To help change the bat company and keep it in business, Hilrich sent 2 of his managers and 2 union members to the next Deming seminar. He expected them to listen to Dr. Deming, then come back and tell him that it might work at other places, but it wouldn't work there. That is, in fact, the standard first reaction. It was not theirs.
They came back and they said, we've been telling you this all along. You have to change. Management has 80% of the problems, and it's your job to solve them. I thought we could really institute things quickly, that it would just be a matter of months before we could change policies and change attitudes. Not so. It takes years.
Employees have not been used to the decision-making process. Sometimes they expect things to happen too soon, and it takes time.
It's hard to convince middle management to change, to be coaches instead of supervisors.
Change is hard, but it can be done, and Hilrich did it. He eliminated a huge inventory by making only bats that had been ordered. He gave the workers job security and did away with daily work quotas, and that changed everything.
It took a lot of pressure off by taking away the quotas, which made it a whole lot easier. That way you get more work out.
At one time, it was kind of hard to meet those numbers some days. Now we work according to our customers' needs. And it's a more relaxed atmosphere to work under.
Once you got no layoff, a thing promised by the president of the company, then that makes it worth your while to go ahead and do the best you can.
I enjoy coming to work today versus 6 years ago. I just really didn't want to come.
It was surprising how many people at all levels in various companies have told us the same thing Mr. Hilrich did. Once a quality system was in place, they actually enjoyed their work and wanted to do it. This is the second of our 3 reports on quality and the global market. The place we talk about is the world, and the people are all of us. We focus on the United States and Japan because they illustrate how the world economy has changed. And it has changed. What used to work doesn't work anymore.
We've got to get American managers more in this stream of quality and giving up some of the practices that they think made them successful in the past, and to repeat them in the future is a mistake.
C. Jackson Grayson, Jr. is chairman of the American Center for Productivity and Quality.
The key. If you give the old response to a new challenge, you're probably going to fail. The new response is quality.
We still are probably responsible for most of the world's innovation, but we haven't been able to make it pay off in terms of products.
It isn't that we've gotten worse, it's that others have gotten better.
Others have gotten better, including a Swedish company founded less than 40 years ago to make quality home furnishings that most people can afford. Welcome to IKEA, a company that is intentionally different and uses none of the traditional management techniques. Instead of bosses and titles and suits and ties, there is a casual openness and cheerful enthusiasm. If that sounds like so much muddle-headed nonsense, try keeping the figures in mind. IKEA's profits doubled in 5 years. It has 96 stores in 24 countries. A new store opens every couple of months, and plants in 45 countries are kept busy making its products. The products are designed to look good, work well, and last. That is one definition of quality. Employees are encouraged to try things, to take chances and risks. If it doesn't work, you've learned something.
You encourage people to try new things, and there's not a lot of worry about whether your boss is going to love it or not.
You have to look over your shoulder all the time, and you know that sometimes what you do is right.
If you do something wrong, it's obviously wrong, but you won't have people reminding you of it for the next 10 weeks or so. It's forgotten quickly, and you learn from your mistakes.
The company from the beginning was specifically designed to be different in everything from its management to its product. The idea was to design things that could fold or fit into a flat space. The founder, it is said, was inspired by a matchbook. It did not want ordinary products or ordinary ideas. Encouraged to think, its employees thought of ways to help the company make money. One idea was a room where kids could enjoy themselves while their parents shopped, making it easier on both groups and increasing sales. It doesn't sound like much, but it is a change. Change is never easy and it's rarely fun, but in the world economy now, change is essential for workers, managers, stockholders, companies, and countries. The simple rule is, a company that will not change will not survive. A change to a quality system means profits. American steel companies that could not or would not change to new quality management methods were driven out of business by competing companies, often foreign, that had already changed. Workers lost their jobs, whole communities were all but wiped out. If change is frightening, not changing is worse. Other steel companies that did change prospered. Nucor Corporation had 10 mills in 1980 and will soon open its 23rd. Like IKEA, Nucor of Charlotte, North Carolina has an unorthodox management system specifically designed to reduce the distance between workers and senior managers. There are no reserved parking places, no executive dining room, and no management perks. Everyone's pay depends on team productivity, which is driven by quality. No one has ever been laid off. Nucor has not had a losing quarter in 25 years, and in 1990, net income increased 30%. Technology is as old as humanity, and it never stops. Before recorded history, man learned to plant and harvest and become a farmer. He designed a wheel so he could travel and move heavy objects. Centuries later, man changed his life again by harnessing the steam in his cooking pot to give him the power to conquer distance. One engine could replace the muscle power of many men. Every period of history had its own change in how people lived and worked. In 1924, a Bell Laboratories scientist named Walter Shewhart drew this chart, and the nature of work changed again as the quality revolution started, as profound a change as the steam engine or the industrial revolution. Bell Labs is part of AT&T, which has always been interested in quality. To learn how different nationalities felt about quality, AT&T hired a French Jungian analyst, now an American, Dr. G. Clotaire Repaille.
So quality in Japan is something very simple to understand. This is the only way you can survive. For centuries, Japanese had been very poor. They were in a situation very difficult with no space. Quality, the attention to details was always there, in the art, in the way they cook, in the way they prepare food. I mean, these guys, they have in their blood quality control. To apply this basic attitude toward production, producing cars, this is not new. So if you compare the German and the Japanese, both cultures still feel today that they're going to run the world. Yeah! And quality is just a proof that they're right. And this is a difference between the Japanese and the German and the American. Quality in America is not just a better product. What for? Who cares? But a new world, yes.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Americans want to prove that men can do it. Men can go to the moon. We can go to Mars. We can create a new world. We can create a better world.
But to create that better world, we have to recognize that the most important parts of the new quality system are the skills and talents of people and how they are organized and managed. That is a major change from the old quantity manufacturing system where natural resources ruled. Howard Samuel heads the industrial division of the AFL-CIO.
Each country would gain its comparative advantage from what economists would call factor endowments. It's natural resources, it's labor force, it's access to capital, even its weather.
We are no longer dependent on the landmass, natural resources, or even strong military force.
Sometime about 20 years ago, a number of countries, led by Japan, but including countries in Europe and also the newly industrialized countries, began to realize that these advantages don't have to become natural. They can be acquired, they can be bought, they can be manufactured.
Even though there may not be a national economy, there is still a national society. There is still politics. There is still national defense. There is still a government.
Economic records are still kept country by country. National wealth is calculated by the gross national product, the GNP. It's the annual value of each country's goods and services. When you calculate each person's share of the GNP, you can predict what they can afford to buy and, to some extent, what their interest will be. One theory is that nationalism becomes less important as people live better.
People are not looking for nationalism, at least in the world where it is $3,000 per capita GNP and upwards. People are looking for good life. In Thailand, for example, we observed very strong nationalism 20 years ago. But today, that movement is much reduced because of the economic prosperity. The same is true with Korea. The same is true with Japan. But once the country passes $5,000 per capita GNP, they are no longer very nationalistic. Ideology is not a central issue anymore. And at $10,000 per capita GNP, which is one of the qualifications of joining the club, the advanced countries club, you know, even government and military becomes a declining industry.
Globalization is going very fast, so we need to reinforce the security system on local culture, on ethnic identity, on the way we feel, the way we deal with food and clothes and raising babies and everything.
In the world economy of the future, even though the nation's economic borders become less and less significant, the nation is going to concentrate more and more on the skills and capacities of its people, which are becoming more and more significant.
But are all people's capacities for quality the same? At the AT&T Atlanta factory, where special cables are made, quality was a problem. To try to find an answer, some of Dr. Rapai's theories of national quality differences were tested by Marilyn Zuckerman, a manager for corporate quality for AT&T.
And we wondered if perhaps there was something about our culture that, if we understood better, might explain why methods that may have been developed in this country by Americans and taken to Japan were able to take root so easily in Japan, but somehow could not be transplanted back here.
There is one thing Americans don't like, is to be controlled. Big government, CIA, whatever it is. We don't like that. You know, we want freedom.
The first experience we have with quality is a negative experience. It's a time when we don't do what others expect or want, and we really feel bad about it.
So if you say quality control, I mean, this is a complete turn-off. Complete turn-off.
For Americans, quality is first and foremost an emotional issue.
Now, Japanese, we tell them we're going to achieve perfection. We're going to do something perfect. They have no problem with that.
The Japanese are consistently disciplined. They seem to have the ability to stick with a task until they really reach a goal.
And you're very proud of that. Not only you are proud, but your ancestors for the past 400 years are going to be proud of you, and your descendants for the next 400 years are going to be proud of you. So accomplishing perfection is going out of time and space.
And that's not true for Americans. While Americans are disciplined, it's short-term discipline.
Now, in America, perfection is death, which means if I accomplish perfection, then I have no future. What do I do next? How do I keep growing? How do I get rewarded?
Now, what happens is that for Americans, as we approach a goal and we see we're almost there, we kind of have a message inside of us that says, well, we're almost there. Of course we can make it. And we relax.
If we transform this notion of quality into this impossible dream, something that is really as a mission for mankind, yes, Americans are going to do it. If we transform that into let's just produce better products in order to compete with the Japanese. Boring.
We want to win the gold medal too. But once we do it, we want to move on to something that's more challenging, that's something new.
We need this frontier spirit, the new frontier. See, to produce a tape recorder, smaller and better, is not a new frontier.
At the Atlanta Works or at any other company, it is management that defines the challenge and seeks the frontier. Management has to change first, and not all managers want to change, especially not when things are going well. Lou Hatala liked the old management style as long as it worked.
Okay, we were manufacturing copper exchange cable, and business was really great, and all of a sudden the bottom fell out. We had gone through divestiture, and the telephone companies were buying their exchange cable from other producers.
Hatala knew he had to change or his factory would not survive.
And I was sitting there with my managers, and I told them, we're not going to ask very much of anyone, except we want them to do the impossible. And I said, and from now on, what we're going to do is drive out fear. And it's going to be okay to make mistakes. And that was very significant. Two things I didn't understand was the doing the impossible, which was really turned out to be a real motivator, and then it's okay to make mistakes, which was a very important way that we found to drive out fear.
2, 1.
The American space program proved that to get people to change, to take a chance, you must either drive out fear by making mistakes acceptable, or you must unite the people in some common effort far greater than their personal safety. The two classic examples of that are the American race to the moon and the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941.
Maybe we went to the moon because we were challenged by the Russian. We couldn't accept the idea that this damn Russian will go to the moon before us. You know, and when they went to space, they were the first to go to space. That was like a Pearl Harbor. But if there is no Pearl Harbor, we don't care.
The Americans need to be challenged and stimulated to achieve that. Now, you can be challenged by a crisis, or you can be challenged by a dream.
To succeed in quality, we need a leader. We need somebody that will be like Kennedy, that will say, let's put a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Somebody like a mission statement, one word or one phrase, not big complicated stuff with numbers, and the people don't understand that, especially in America. But if we give a mission statement that the cleaning lady can understand, you know, when you question the cleaning lady at the NASA and you ask her, what is your job? Well, I'm putting a man on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Florida Power and Light provides electricity to Cape Canaveral, but it met its own challenge when in 1989 it became the first American company to win the Deming Prize, Japan's highest award for industrial excellence.
This is an example, just to give you an idea.
The award is named for Dr. Deming, the American consultant. To win it, Florida Power and Light personnel had to persuade consultants from the Union of Japanese Scientists and Engineers that they had faithfully applied the Deming quality method. It took Japanese companies 25 to 40 years to achieve advanced levels of quality, but because of their experience, other companies could do it in less time.
The Deming Prize is like your learner's permit for driving. It means you've read the manual and you can pass the test. It doesn't mean that you're an expert driver yet.
An electric company's quality is judged by its percentage of power failures. The national average is 10%. Florida Power and Light was 14%. After major improvements at generating stations, power failures went down to less than 4%. One of the changes that helped involved better ways to keep branches off power lines.
Basically, we started at one end of our territory and tried to trim to the other, and it was a never-ending cycle.
But there was no data on how fast trees grow after they've been cut by a utility. But we talked with the University of Florida. They could tell us how fast an oak tree would grow in normal circumstances, but they couldn't tell us how fast it would grow after we cut it. And we needed to know that in order to know when we needed to go back to cut the line, trim the lines again. So we have developed our own growth model.
It sounds obvious. If you know how fast a tree grows, you know when to go back and trim it again. Apparently, it was not that obvious. The Japanese examiners said the growth model was a new quality process and told Japanese power companies about it.
The process for engineering breakthrough is a process of understanding problems. with data. That's the primary thing. We call it management by fact. Understanding what the problems are, finding the root cause of the problem, which is something we often treat symptoms rather than root causes, and then effectively taking countermeasures to remove those, and then standardizing the process by which you now do, you accomplish your task, so that the good gain you had stays there forever.
Quality methods even helped in the stockroom, one of the so-called soft parts of business that can be overlooked. But confusion in the stockroom can waste employee time and drive up customer costs. Quality helps keep costs down.
We would be bothered 10, 15 times a day. Could you help us find this form or this pen or this type of graph paper? And it was a continuous interruption. Before, we could be ordering 3, 4, 5 times a week. We took a sample of everything we had in the room, and it was amazing. We found 30% of the forms were obsolete, and we developed an inventory control system. We're not overstocking, we're not wasting space.
Florida Power and Light also used quality methods to protect its people. This was a constant problem. The device warns of vicious dogs at an address called Blue Dogs because the master file is kept on blue cards. The company not only protected people from animals, it protected creatures, including sea turtles, when the company expanded into nesting areas. Warm water discharged at the plant attracted tropical manatees, which were being cut by the propellers of powerboats. Groups of employees worked together to solve the problem and protect the animals. No one did it alone.
The American mythology of the strong, independent hero who can conquer all the problems, usually within a half an hour, which has been ingrained into us by TV, simply isn't true. It's just not the way things work.
I'm going after them.
The guy riding into the western town and, tames it all by himself. The frontiersman, who goes out, and conquers the untamed forest. The way you actually get things done is through groups of folks working together.
Cowboy management is a disaster for the company that seeks quality. Suddenly the cowboy doesn't look like a hero, and maybe the heroes are the townspeople who worked hard together to develop a particular area. I think we can look back and find threads in our past that are cooperative as well as individualistic.
And I think you really need to concentrate more on the management